Welcome to Thrive in the Mess. I'm your host, Lisa Hutchcraft Whitmer. So, hey friend, welcome to Thrive in the Mess. I have an amazing friend with me who I've known several years. I met her literally weeks after my mom went to be with Jesus when she passed away. And she had such a joy then, and I like to laugh with her. She makes me giggle. And her name is Caitlyn, and she is actually a Native American friend of mine. And Caitlyn, there are, a lot of people don't always know, there are lots of different nations and tribes. What is your nation?
Yeah, hi, whoever's watching. My name is Caitlyn, and I am Navajo from New Mexico.
And now my sister-in-law is Navajo, and one of my sister-in-laws, and so I know a little Navajo, but not much. But I'm not going to say this with the right inflections, because Navajo is really one of the languages that is still very much spoken. There are different tribes that still do have their language, like Lakota and Cherokee and Navajo. And one of the things they say their greeting is Yate. But how do you say it? You say it right.
So it would be like Yat.
There you go.
Yeah, so Navajo, for me, like if I was to introduce myself to another Navajo or in general, it would be Yat Caitlyn Yinshye. Oh. So that's hello, my name is Caitlyn in Navajo.
To another Navajo. Now, what if you're talking to someone who's not Navajo?
I mean, you can still say it, but you have to translate it.
Right.
I don't know if they'll understand. Some people do.
Right.
Yeah, but Navajo is the largest tribe in the United States. Yeah. And there's over 500 federally recognized native tribes in the U.S.
That is mind-blowing, because I didn't even know that at first. Like when I first was hearing about Native America, everyone thinks about the Southwest, which is where your tribe is located, and your reservation, which spans 4 states.
About,
down
I think
there.
so.
Isn't that right? Like Colorado. Well, I don't. Maybe it's the 3 states. Maybe it's not Colorado, but that whole area down there, New Mexico and Arizona. Which state are you from? Your res.
I'm from New Mexico. So I'm a New Mexico Navajo.
And my sister-in-law is an Arizona Navajo. But you guys can still be friends.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like, so it is a big reservation, and people live there. I have to tell you, one of my favorite. It's one of the only Navajo words I know, too. One of my favorites is Hushklish. And it sounds like what it sounds like what it is, you know? Mm-hmm. And it means mud, right? Am I even saying that? And to me, it sounds like if you're trying to get your foot out of mud, it's like Hushklish. Like it just sounds like that's probably why I feel like it's such a fun word, you know? And I learned with my sister-in-law. Like, here I am, this white person trying to speak my couple little Navajo words. I might not be saying this correctly, but Ionishne was I love you. Is that right? Is that right? Yeah. You can correct my Navajo when you want.
You're pretty good.
Well, I think we've come to the end of my Navajo words. It's like,
There's a start.
Well, actually, the only other one would be like a white person. Is that Belagana?
Yeah.
But it's kind of what I've learned in some native languages. Am I remembering this correctly? Sometimes the word that's like for a white person isn't always a flattering word, because there have been some not great things that have been done through history. And with talking here, like we're talking about messes, there have been a lot of messes. So it's no surprise that, I don't know, am I remembering that right with Navajo, that sometimes the word for white person is it like the white fat in the soup or something? Maybe that's another native language.
I think that
might
be I've never heard that, but yeah, I think in different tribes and languages, for someone who is white, their translation, it ranges. I mean, around among 500 federally recognized tribes, but like with Navajo, yeah, there's hurt, a lot of hurt with that.
Right. Can you tell? Let's dive into some of that. What is some of the hurt, like some of the mess? You grew up on the reservation. Some Native people live in urban places as well. Like there would be a lot of Native people, not just Navajo, but lots of other tribes. There's various Apache tribes, and different kinds though. There's like San Carlos Apache and Hickory Apache, and there's just lots of different nations, but they would live in some of the centers like maybe Phoenix or Albuquerque. But you grew up on the Navajo reservation. What was some of that like? You're talking about some of the hurt. Where did some of that come from?
Yeah, so growing up, my parents divorced when I was fairly young, and
that can be messy.
Yeah, so that's a big mess already.
Right.
Just trying to figure out, like just a lot of hurt that was within that that I realized like I did go through. And one thing I seen that was common among like me and my friends was like we did all have like in a way broken homes, like our parents weren't together. And so like literally like my friend group were like you like one holiday you'd go spend with your dad, another holiday you spend with your mom, or
right.
But both of my parents loved me the best they could, but it was like living in different locations in a way. So a big chunk of my childhood was I was raised with my grandma, my grandparents, and so that's pretty common with natives is if a child their parents aren't in the picture, they tend to go to like their aunts or uncles or often grandparents.
And a lot of times, sometimes, not in all cases, but from what I understand, people are also living near each other. I know, like maybe there's a hogan or a family hogan or a family home, and so like the grandparents, like you could have 3 generations living very close together. I even know with my sister-in-law, she actually had 4. One, 2, 3. There were like 4 generations in some cases living near each other. Her grandparents, who were very elderly, and then her parents, and then her sisters, and then their children. So there can be a lot of generations there where they are living together. Was that similar to you, like the grandparents nearby, or?
Well, where we lived, like it was I think the Navajo Housing Authority, so it's like a complex. So my grandparents on both sides, like their homes were pretty run down, and like within like it was like house by house, so we didn't have like the hogan. Like I understand what you're saying,
right?
But
it probably depends on where on the res,
like what region you're in. Because like where my roots are with like my great grandma or on my both sides, they had land out in Arizona and they had a hogan and sheep and all of that. So it really depends on like what area of the reservation you're on, because I think some are more in a way remote than others.
Yeah.
Like there are some places on the Navajo reservation that doesn't have running water or electricity. Then there are those that do have water and electricity. And like some places in like Arizona, the nearest store is like 30, 40, maybe even an hour away.
Yeah.
But luckily for me, like there was a border town, so like we were able to go to town a lot.
Meaning like right on the edge of the reservation, border town.
Yeah,
right.
So it's like 15, 20 minutes instead of like others that have like an hour or 2 away.
That's like going to the city, going to the border town. As long as there's not Hoshglish on the road, no man. Well, and I know even when my brother would drive, when he and my sister-in-law were dating, he would drive her back to her family's home, and they would have to watch out for cattle guards. And my sister-in-law, she can be a little more quietly spoken, but she can also speak out. And so they'd be on this dirt road. It was a long, bumpy, like that washboard, depending on the time of year road. And all of a sudden, Doug would be, driving along, and she would just kind of belt out, "Cattle guard!" And you kind of want to slow down or you're just going to hit it. So, and you also have to be careful you don't hit like people's animals out there, like cows, and and where she lived, it was kind of a border between another reservation, and their family actually had to move. I know at one point down. So I know what you're saying about land, and it depends on where you are. So you'd go to the border town, and so you're dealing with going back and forth between mom and dad. You're with your grandma. How was that? I know. Like she was special to you, so
yeah, my grandma definitely has played a big influence on who I am today. Not just like a lot of my childhood was seeing her pray on like the side of her bed in Navajo, and my family on my dad's side was more traditional, so it was like.
Now, what does that mean, traditional?
So like every native tribe. Well, some native tribes actually, they have different like traditions they do to, in a way they say to preserve the culture, and so like they have like a traditional story, like a creation story, just like with natives, it's a very oral storytelling type of format. Right. It's not necessarily like you can go to Ancestry and find your roots.
Right.
It's more of like if your grandma said it because their grandma said it. You don't
that
question.
Is Ancestry.com
yeah.
with the elders.
So like there was a time that someone was telling me about Ancestry, and I was like, if I put my name in there, I don't think there's nothing, because I just found out my great grandma, she didn't really have a social security card or a number, and she passed at. Everyone said she was 97, but they were saying that for the past 3 years. So I think she was 100.
Really?
Honestly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And like what she did was like for World War II, I think it was World War II, but she made like stencils, the bullet stencils, I heard.
Wow.
And
so she was almost like a code talker behind the scenes in a way. And Navajo code talkers, there are other code talkers. I know the Choctaw tribe, maybe Cherokee as well, I think. But Navajo code talkers, they had some. I didn't want to, we're not going to know exactly, but like I think a lot of them, of course, have died by now, but some of them have lived, very lengthy lives, like in the recent years, from what I know. But speaking the Navajo language, and it really helped, So
they definitely helped save America. Right, I know. Navajo code talkers.
It is really something. And the interesting thing about that to me is that people don't always know a lot about Native America, and how some of my Native friends have been treated sometimes as a citizen, like just in life, like a citizen on earth. I'm not even talking about of a country, just how they're treated because maybe of the color of their skin, but they really showed up and helped. Very significantly in that. So that is something to really be commended. It's something to be very proud of for the Navajo people. And I love those stories, hearing about that. So, so you are, keep going on some of that. You said your dad's side was more traditional. Anything else to help explain traditional?
Just very high spirituality, I think. I think like, with like the household I was growing up in, like with my grandpa, he would share a lot of different stories of like the spiritual world, of just the way like they believe like the Navajos appeared here, when you pass you go through another world. So very high spirituality. So like that was so when it came to like Jesus, the spiritual part of me wasn't in a way like questioning a lot, because I knew like there is like a spiritual world there.
Native people are some of the most spiritual people I have ever known, because it's just a part of everyday life. And it's not always like that for different people groups. And that's something that is to be said, that for it really, like you're saying, it's just part of life. You hear it every day. So interesting. Yeah. So Jesus was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah,
that's
Jesus
spiritual too.
Okayed me. Jesus like, okay, Caitlyn. Just kidding. But like even like growing up, like there was a lot of different just around, like not necessarily like directly to me, but like in the like seeing the struggle with natives in general. A lot of alcoholism, drug addiction, substance abuse.
More messes. Right. Sexual abuse is one of the highest percentages among males and females on the reservations, which is heartbreaking. Yeah.
And like suicide rates are skyrocketing. So they're with like in Native communities, like there are, I mean, people in general, but like those issues they were common, like to see, to hear about, to know someone who's gone through it. Like it just seemed like it was in a way normal. And it really took me leaving the reservation and to see that like that isn't normal,
right?
Like that we shouldn't normalize a lot of those messes or hurts.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's really significant. No matter where we're coming from, we shouldn't normalize those messes or hurts. Ooh. Yeah, I see. That's what I love. You just have a way to kind of just say it there.
I don't know. Just cause
that should be a wall plaque right there. Okay, so you kind of have a few different messes going on, like just kind of seeing these things as normal. So, was there any hope in the middle of all the messes?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, so, I'm sorry. Since I just flipped my earring, I do want to say you made these.
I did.
I love them. So
I love that you wear them. They look so good.
Well, you did a great job. I love the color turquoise. And so I just have to say one of my favorite things is either buying, or sometimes people have gifted different pieces of jewelry they've made, and those are my little prayer reminder for them too. So and they're just beautiful to wear.
Is that why you wear them a lot? Because you
need a lot of prayer, Caitlyn.
I'm just kidding.
Let's see. I'm not going to answer that, but let's go back to something.
I do need prayer.
Well, and that has been a wonderful thing to like pray for different things. We'll get to some of this later.
Yeah,
I don't know you yet at this point in your story, but so it sounds like some hopeless stuff, but was there any kind of hope or joy or anything in the middle of all this?
Yeah, so for me, like, again, in the environment of just a lot of hurt, pain, seeing alcohol, drugs, stuff. Well, not really like hardcore drugs, but drugs is drugs.
Right.
And like having friends who have gone through different abuse things. Like I never really wanted to do like drink or smoke or none of that because I seen the impact it had around me. Even within like my personal life of like knowing people who would like drink and all of it and just the whole aftermath that kids really shouldn't go through, but they do go through. And like again, that's in the way of like a native like normal, but it shouldn't be normal.
Right.
And my grandma on my mom's side, she took me to church a lot as a kid. Like I remember it was a brown church, small, and the pastor would often talk in Navajo. And
now, did you know Navajo enough? I know the older generations have known more Navajo and maybe not as much English. At least that was the case. Like with my sister-in-law's family, but what was your case? Like, did you know enough Navajo?
Well, it wasn't like the first language I learned. English was, but as I started to get older, like my grandparents started to speak it more. So I'm not like confident in like a whole conversation. Like I wish.
I think every Navajo person I talk to
I'm not confident in like I mean, there are some who can, and that's like I want to be one day.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, like when especially my grandpa, when he would tell a story, he would say it in Navajo, and there's just so much.
How much did you understand when he would say that? 60%?
I don't know percent.
Right.
I mean, it just
I'm terrible
you just
knowing
like
that too, but
follow
maybe
and like Like, I never questioned. There are some natives who do question stuff, but for me, like, I would just listen, and it's just him telling his stories. And
and there's something special just about that. I love that you had that connection, even though it came out of like the mess of divorce, that you had that special connection with your grandparents. Because I know you've talked so much about how much they have meant to you in life. And not everyone has that connection because families move far apart and live all over. But on the reservation, it can be a special connection because you are closer to where your grandparents are. So I love that for you. And just, I picture little Caitlyn just soaking up listening, to your
my
grandpa.
grandma used to make a lot of our cultural foods and
fry bread,
hot tortilla bread, potatoes and spam. That's my favorite. My other grandma would make dumpling stew and fry bread. On Sundays after church, we would go to see her, and just, it was like, that was like Sundays I remember, is going to church, coming back, and she would always have like some type of food, and we all come, and my cousins would come, and we'd play outside all day, and then whenever like halfway through, I think it was elementary or beginning of middle school, I moved in with my dad, and so that was into a border town. It wasn't on the reservation, but it was like 10-15 minutes from the borderline, and a lot of like Navajos went to my school, so like the kids I grew up with, like, I seen all the time.
Like, was it more mixed, or was it mainly more Navajo?
I think it was still mainly more Navajo. I mean, there was some like mix in it, but like you didn't notice.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't something that, like, I think like the majority of the school is Native American. And so my grandma, she, again, would take me to church. It was a brown small church, and we didn't have a Sunday school teacher. We'd go in there and play checkers and watch VeggieTales, and the adults would be in the main part, and then she comes out and say, "Let's go." And like that's what I thought church was.
Right.
And
watching VeggieTales, Bob the Tomato.
Yep, the Esther one, all the way. That's my favorite show. And so like there was a point in my life of where I knew, like, I didn't want to just be another statistic, because I would hear about like alcoholism, drug stuff, and I would see it, and often like just the hurt it really brought, and I didn't want to settle for that. I didn't want to just, like, I felt like there was something more in my life, and I needed a purpose. And sadly, like, suicide rates are common among young Native people.
Right.
And I mean, even
that hopelessness.
Of like, why live here? Why stay? And so for me, like, I ran to sports, like really any other Native does, is like basketball's huge. And so I grew up playing a lot of basketball. I, worked hard in school. I did all these things that seemed right, but like there was still a big hole in my heart. And in my family, I guess I'm one of the strong ones, that like my grandparents would say, don't cry, be strong. Don't cry, be strong. And so there was times like so many people would want to talk with me and just tell me what they're going through. And it just seemed that like I needed someone stronger than me. And so I struggled with like being real with myself, and like even telling my parents like, hey, I'm going through this, or I'm sad, or like, because everyone so much came to me that like I felt like I couldn't go to them, or I didn't, like, because I knew, I was like, I don't know if it was a pride thing, whatever, but there's a time in my life I started to hit rock bottom and just question so much, and I was having so many questions about like this divorce and my own life, and I just felt incomplete. And so I told my grandma, if it was a church service, and I asked if I can sit in there with her, and she was like, okay. And
I used VeggieTales that day, did you?
I didn't. But like in her Bible, it was highlighted, and I would draw in it, like, and so I would like take paper and like draw or write notes. And so like I remember like doing that, and like she let me like leave it in her journal, her journals. And so like whenever the pastor was talking, he was describing Jesus, and he said, Jesus is Yoshon, and like Jesus loves you and he sees you. And
I know that ocean.
I see you light up.
Like little
yeah,
Navajo, I know.
And so I just hearing him describe this Jesus guy of how he loves me and sees me, and I don't have to be someone I'm not. I don't have to wear a mask, but he will meet me where I am, and he can handle whatever I give him. And I told my grandma, I want that Jesus, because in the past I've heard, he's only for the white people because of the native history of residential schools and brokenness and so on. And even the pictures I seen, it was white Jesus, blonde hair, blue eyes, tall guy, and that's who I thought he was. And
he was a Mediterranean Jew.
Yeah, he was a tribal
darker
man.
Skin,
he didn't speak English. He spoke a tribal language. He came from a place where they said no one good can come from there. And so as this pastor was describing him, I couldn't help but think I want that Jesus, and that's where I told my grandma, and she prayed with me, and I remember just the weights that felt like it just lifted off. And I did grow up in the church, I did grow up knowing the right verses and the questions and the answers, but I don't think I really truly believed until I was 12 or 13.
And there is a difference, being involved in a church and going to a church is one thing, but church doesn't save us. Church doesn't, that's not our, Jesus is the one who saves us. God is the one who we have the relationship with. And then church is a place to grow and be with people and fellowship with other believers and learn more about God's word and things like that. But Jesus is the one who saves us and gets rid of that weight. Oh my goodness. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you didn't want VeggieTales that one Sunday.
I mean, I still like Esther on VeggieTales. But
VeggieTales was huge in our house. Our oldest son was we were all about VeggieTales. So, but wow. So that relationship with Jesus then, how did that, change things?
Yeah. So when
or did it?
I mean, it definitely took time. It took a lot of the Lord really had to work on me as a person. Definitely I had to heal from different things I went through in my life or didn't think I needed to heal from, but I actually did, unforgiveness and God just came into my life and turned it around.
Wow.
At the beginning of my walk with Jesus, we still didn't have a Sunday school teacher. My mom went to a different church, so sometimes I would go with her, but I was with my grandma a lot. I knew the code to get into the church. That's how much that's how much I was with my grandma.
Wow.
I knew where she hid the keys. But what I remember is she gave me a Bible and I would just read it.
Wow.
I would just read about Jesus. I would just that was my beginning walk with the Lord, was just reading the word. And I didn't really question a lot, I think, because I never really questioned when my grandpa would tell me a story, I wouldn't say is that true or not. I would just listen and be like, okay, did I believe it? I mean, I don't know, but I would say okay.
Right.
And so as I started to grow with Jesus and my relationship got stronger with him, my family and our relationship in a way became a little bit more rocky. My grandpa, he, there was times he would question why are you doing that? Why are you going to church? And there was also times where he would ask me to pray for him. And it was just me going, I'd be like, okay, and we pray, and he'd always say Shiyazha, your prayers are powerful. And he played a medicine man in our culture or where we were from, and basically it's kind of like a mediator between him and God. And so people would come to our house or his house, and they would ask him, can you do a prayer? Can you do this? And he would do it, and so in a way, he was making an impact. And so a lot of people would come all over from like Arizona, and especially in our area. And like when it came to like me having to start or like not take a part in those ceremonies, or different things like that, with my grandpa, he would question and be like, why, or you should, but he never forced me to do it, which I like, looking back to this day, like I appreciate. And so like as I started to grow more in Christ, he like just did so much in my life, like restored a lot of things. He has healed me from a lot of different brokenness and unforgiveness, and now I do have a purpose. And with my grandpa, like the man who was like, I don't want nothing to do with Jesus, like I got to pray with him. My grandma, who like was one of, I think in my eyes, like the strongest woman of God I do know. She did pass in 2021, I think.
I know, that was hard.
Yeah, and that was like my first time into the mess of grief.
Right, and loss.
And loss, and that was really, really hard for me.
She had been such an anchor for you, but you know what I love? That she pointed you to her anchor, to Jesus. Yep. And so you ended up still having that anchor of Jesus. I know, like, even after my mom passed away, the anchor of Jesus is what really, just how God gets us through those moments when we just feel like, I know there were times I felt like I couldn't even, pray, even like put words together, but you're just like, God still knows. So did he show up in your grief after your grandma?
Yes, he did. My mom, she's actually a very strong Christian as well, and my dad, and both of my step-parents. So it's kind of like I have 4 parents.
Yeah.
But like my dad, he there was times where, like, as a child or like in my teenage years, I was just so like on fire. I am still on fire for God, but like I'd like find a way to get to youth group. People would give me rides, and he'd be like, how are you getting to church? And there's always, oh, she's going to church. She's going to church. And like my dad, he in a way like really seen a lot in my life. And before my grandma passed, I decided to go to school, college in Chicago, and I left home for the first time. Like,
meaning, like that's huge right there, because some, like for a Native young person, some go to college, but this was also a Christian college.
Yeah.
And that's a smaller percentage of a Native young person who would go to a Christian college. So how did that work out?
Yeah, so when
that probably has its own messes. College is like exhausting, and it's just...
yeah, so like when I started college, my grandma was around, my grandpa was around, my pastor was around. Right. So everyone was so excited to see me start. The beginning of it was rocky though, because I did in a way leave like this idea of like a family dream, because I worked so hard in school to go into engineering and do these different things.
I didn't know that.
I know.
An engineer.
Yeah, I actually...
See, I always knew you were smart.
Sometimes. Don't show it a lot.
We're all smart sometimes. It's part of the mess of life. It's like, but we don't compare gifts.
Yes.
God makes us uniquely us. So you're the one I should call if I need to like fix something or engineer.
I could try, but it might not be the best. There's people who actually went to school for that or know what they're doing.
There are people.
I didn't. I went to Bible college, Lisa.
I went to Bible college. So people were excited you went, or were they disappointed because you had gone down the engineering route?
I think it was both. Yeah. I think the beginning,
that can be messy
at least,
too. All the expectations.
Yeah, my parents, they really wanted what was best for me. But I felt God calling me to Bible college because I wanted to get more training to be, in the mission field and work with young Native people and do discipleship and evangelism. And I want, the very first thing of like when I went to school, a lot of people are like, what brought you to Moody? And I was like, what brought me here? I was questioning. I was like, God, why am I in Chicago?
A plane? No.
Literally, plane and $30 in my pocket, and really don't know what I'm doing.
That's messy too, not having enough money to that's a lot. Yeah.
And so my dad and my mom, they definitely questioned where I was going. And again, like, they want the best for me. And
that's kind of in the parent handbook, I have to tell you.
I mean, I'm not a parent, but I'm pretty sure. And, like, whenever I was going to go, they both said, like, we don't want you to go. Like, what are you doing? Like, why? And it really hurt because I felt like I was disappointing my family. I felt like I was disappointing my parents. And I was like, God, like, what are you calling me to? And I remember like thinking like if I'm gonna go like I need you. Like, I totally like, because I was thinking, if I go, like, I don't know what my family, and like they even like try to convince me, well, I don't think they did, but my grandma tried to convince me not to go. And I felt like everyone was just like, like, what is she doing? Wow, and all I knew was God was calling me and I needed to go. And so I had to really stand my ground, and it was hard and painful, and there was a lot of times I cried and was like, wow, I'm disappointing, the people I love.
And here's a big thing I see with that is you felt God pushing, you to go prompting you, to go a certain direction, and you stepped out of your comfort zone. But that's really scary for a lot of people. And it involves tears and all the things, wrestling, all the emotions, right? And it's also scary for people in our lives to see us step out of our comfort zone. But at the same time, I can't speak for your family, but I know even what I've seen in our lives, and you step out of your comfort zone, and it really encourages other people too. They're like, wow, if they can step out of their comfort zone, maybe I can, But I'm really proud of you for stepping out of your comfort zone. Because, and when you have just kind of, it's uncertain. Like, all the reactions are totally understandable because it's like, whoa, like Chicago and far from home and the reservation and different, major, pursuing a different field of study. But when God puts something on our heart, if we don't do it, honestly, that's going to be not a cool situation later, because we can choose our way to live our way or God's way. And that's even like sin in the Bible, that middle letter I-S-I-N, it's like us choosing to live my way or God's way. And not to say that like you could have chosen something else, but when we kind of squish down like what God's putting on our heart, and life ends up not being as great. He really has our best in mind, And so, okay, you're at college, and any messy stories from there, and did things calm down also, like where family were like, oh, okay, we get this, and the initial, once you're past the initial hump of getting there and going, and did things how did that pan out?
So I actually told God, I was like, hey, if you're calling me, you work on my parents' heart, like I don't, like, you confirm it in any way, however you through, like, to them, let them hear from you. And separately, like, they both like did come up to me, and like my mom, was like, I don't understand, but like I need to release you to the Lord. And so like he, talked with her, and however he does. And with my dad, he was like, it kind of hit him, I think, a little bit harder, because like my dad always has provided and looked out for me. And in a way, he kind of knew that, like, this isn't something he could provide or really, like, control or be.
It is hard for a parent. Like, we bring up our children, and then it's like you want them to fly. You want to launch them. But there's part of you, like, you can't always be there for all the things. We can't fix all the boo-boos, that we could when they're little, and so that is kind of something in, I think, every parent's heart a lot of times. So that makes sense what you're saying with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But for my dad, it was probably like a day or two before I was about to fly out, and I had some like really like ministry family, your family, different friends all from all over who like prayed for me, and I told
we're all like, woohoo!
Yeah, I was like, guys,
like
I actually need support in this, and like family support, and like my dad. He said, I remember he was like, a lot of people in the world have jobs and they make great money and they work in a building, but they are so miserable with their lives. And he was like, I'd rather you do something in your life that you find it worth living for, and something you love to do, and that you see like life has meaning. He's like, regardless of the paycheck. And he said, he was like, as a like a little girl to like your teenage to now, he's like, you've always had such strong faith in God, and he's provided in ways that I can't, and I didn't. And he was like, what makes me think he's not going to take care of you there?
Right.
And this is my dad. Like,
wow.
And so when I seen that, I was like, okay, like, let's go.
God, you answered my prayer.
Yeah.
Wow. And you know what? It's things like that. Like I look back in my life at certain things where I've prayed for something, and God doesn't always answer the way we want to. We want him to.
When we want to.
Exactly. And the timing could be totally differently.
Could be 11:59 right?
11:59.
He's
right.
done that so many times.
But the thing is that he does answer. And I love that. And those moments are things that have really deepened my relationship with God, like my walk with him. And I just see that with you, like, wow, okay, God, I prayed for you to speak to my parents' hearts, and wow, you answered, and so beautifully too. Like, wow, for each of them to say what they did. And so you get there. I have a question. So you get there, and I've heard this sometimes from Native young people, that when you go somewhere, and there are not a lot of other Native people, that can be a little challenging. Were there a lot of other Native Americans at this Bible college? And how was that? Like, that plays into... you can be honest.
So
this is a mess too.
So I have so many messes that has happened, but God,
we like messes here because
Yes.
we're already seeing how you were walking through and thriving in some of these messes. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Because there's lots of layers to this. There's, things from the past. Even I just want to touch on when you said earlier unforgiveness. That's a tricky one, because that's something in our hearts that can just be lodged in there, and we don't realize that unforgiveness, and it really cripples us. And so when you fast forward to when you chose to begin a relationship with Jesus, and how you said you've worked through some of this unforgiveness and all, that's really freeing, because that alone, right there's so many strands to every story, and these are just lots of different strands of relationships, of spirituality, of brokenness in different ways, and seeing the different messes growing up. So now we're in a situation with, okay, are there other natives? You're in a city, not on the reservation. Like, the border town was the biggest city for now,
for a little while. Yeah, so when I first left and was there wasn't a lot of natives, at the school. It was my first time, like, hearing the term minority, majority. My first time seeing the lack of awareness people genuinely just don't have about Native Americans. I mean, I heard about it. I heard the term natives are the forgotten people. I, have been around, ministry to where, like, you hear stuff, but I never experienced or seen it myself. And it took me going to Chicago to really see that and often like live in it. And so my first semester, really year, was very rocky for me. Because in a way, like I was like, man, like none of these people know me. You know, none of these people know anything about Native Americans. They say we're a history book, or do we have like there was just so much like unknowns. And as I was there, like even in classes, like they would mention all types of people groups, but the one that they never mentioned was Native Americans. Right. And I would always look for Native Americans. And
you're like, we are forgotten.
Yeah.
And we're living it.
Yeah. Wow. And like this, like to me was like, because I always, like growing up, you know, I would see scripture about we're the body of Christ, we're unity and all of this. And it just seemed like there was a table like this and like everyone had a different voice into it, but the one person or people group who wasn't really in the conversation were Native Americans. Wow. And so for me, like that was
Is there a seat for me at the table?
Yeah. And so like I really like struggled. I questioned. I'd call my mom crying. I did a lot of basketball because I was just like I
therapy. Basketball is good therapy.
I had to see like why, like really take a self-check of like, God, why am I here? And my dad, I remember he would tell me, be like, you know, if you want to come home, like come home. And it felt like that door was always like open of like, if you want to come back, just come, we'll buy your ticket. And but then like it really took me to a point of where I was becoming bitter. You know, I was starting in a way like becoming angry with people who like just genuinely didn't know, and I was like, you know, why why don't these people care like they should?
Right.
And I really like the Lord had to have me take a self-check of like what were my motives, like what are my motives, and he really in a way had to like cling me back to the cross of like learning how to love people.
Wow.
And not just the culture of a person, a genuine person, and seeing the worth in them. And whenever I ask God, you know, teach me how to love people, like regardless if they ask about me, regardless if they even care about my culture, like how do I still love this person I'm talking to?
Right.
And once like my heart changed, like in a way, like I like had like I gave up like that big like, what is it, like zeal for like the culture part. He really started to like teach me how to love people, and I started to see that as the approach was like not necessarily like hear me or see me, but it was more of like tell me about you. Like God started to open
Which
doors.
Really other people should do too.
Yeah,
that's a good example.
Yeah.
That
it's hard.
Hurting.
It's hard because it's very easy to play the victimized card, of like, you know, white people did this and da da da. And there are, again, like yes, there is history and true hurts that have happened in Native America, but there needs to be like the way I see it is like if Native people are very angry with non-natives, and like when a non-native does ask a question, and like a native or whoever person of color really is like always like coming at them, or like not seeing that genuinely people just don't know, and they're not like choosing to be ignorant, like they just genuinely don't know. And
it's sadly out of sight, out of mind. I feel like with Native Americans so often, and when I've talked with non-Native people, and then some people assume, you know, teepees and, you know, just different things, or everybody does this, and different people, you know, one of the things I love, just to insert this about Native people, the crafts can be different. You know, some of the jewelry might be made out of shells. Well, not on the Navajo reservation because there are no shells, you know, there's not water, but like tribes up by the Columbia River, you know, in the Northwest, or just different things. and some use porcupine quills. We know people who literally, they see a dead porcupine, that's part of their livelihood. They're going to stop and collect it. I wonder how badly those smell, but when it's your livelihood.
Never done that, and I don't plan on it.
You're sticking with the beadwork part.
Yeah, I'll stick to the others.
Some people, like, even I know some tribes, they do silver, and some people do designs on, silver smithing, stuff like that. So that's just one, and they all live differently and have different clothing because they've been all over the United States, not just in the Southwest, but, Northwest, Florida, Northeast, the Plains, and up into Canada. My goodness, we have friends who live on the edge of the Bering Sea who we all know, who they like eating, different parts of different animals that we don't have in our local grocery stores, So every nation, every tribe is different and unique. And I think there's just so much people just don't know. So I so appreciate your voice even today, sharing some of just Native America, because I think people honestly do want to know, but they don't. And it does hurt. It even hurts me. I'm not Native, but it hurts me because Native people are very special to me. And I want people to know about Native people. They are this country's first people. And so I just love hearing your story, the hard and the difficult, because it just helps people know more about it. Okay, so you had a kind of a change in perspective of, I'm going to ask people about them, and you chose to not be bitter. That is a huge intentional choice right there. Did that help? Did that, you stayed there longer? Like, spoiler alert, you did graduate.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think when you seek the Lord and you trust, He puts you in a place out of your comfort zone, and where you really learn what you pray. Like He is faithful to finish like what He completed, and I think like from my first year to finishing, like, there has been definitely a lot of times of growth and hard, challenging times, but like so much beauty has came out of that past chapter of just meeting people, talking about Jesus, of like, yes, highlighting the hurts, because they are real. I'm not saying they're not, they are, but like also highlighting like God is on the move in Native America, and He's not done, There's hope. Like, that there is hope. And I'm just one of like probably hundreds of Native young people who believe, and who are serving on reservations, who are going to get more training, who love Jesus and just want to make a difference. And and so it was just always encouraging just to share that, like, God is on the move, and it's not just me, but there's many. And I have the privilege and honor of serving along, Native young people who love Jesus and want to make a difference where they're at, and who are making a difference, whether if it's televised or whatever, like they love, like, God is using them. And that brings me joy, because it's like we are doing the Great Commission. We are doing the work. And
sharing the hope that you have found, because you did not have that before. And a lot of the Native young people, probably most of the Native young people you and I know, went from having no hope, and then they had similar situations like you did, or still do, but they had a point where they're like, okay, I see Jesus is not the white man's God, which is a very common perception, like you said, among Native people. And they chose to begin a relationship with God through His Son, Jesus. And that gave them hope. And that's what you're talking about, just Native young people who are saying, hey, this is where we found our hope. And I just love that. I do want to brag on you a little bit here, because I know while you were in college, you didn't just roll over. You helped and be like, okay, whatever. But you literally helped raise awareness about Native America at your college. And part of that was, didn't you even like they had, I know, a couple occasions where they had flags come in of people from around the world and students representing where they were from. And you got to carry the Navajo flag and dress in your Navajo
Yes.
clothing, didn't you?
Yeah.
Looking all beautiful like that and proudly representing. And you know what? It made a difference with you being there. Just to draw this out again, I felt God, prompting your heart to do something. You chose to step out of your comfort zone, and you had a lot of voices going on where you could have said, nope, it's easier to just stay here and not step out. But you did. Then you get there, you have a hard time where people are like, who are you? I know sometimes people assume, oh, you're, anything but Native American.
Yeah, a lot of people either think I'm Hawaiian, I'm Mexican, or now I'm Mongolian. So,
right.
A lot of people think I'm everything else. Then occasionally they'll be like, Navajo. And I'm like, whoa, how'd you know? How did you get that so fast?
Well, and I love that you had all of that. And then you were able to bring awareness about your people. Literally carrying the flag and, representing your people. And I love that you did that.
Yeah, it was definitely hard. There was no real path to walk on.
Right.
A lot of conversations, a lot of just sharing that God is on the move, and really He made those avenues. Like He made those events happen. He opened opportunities that I cannot take no credit for. Like honestly, like we had our first at least that I know of, like our first Native American chapel where two of my friends came out. One of them shared the message, the other one, his wife, did worship, and I did my story, and that was like aired on like our the live stream. And yeah, just to see how the Lord really went before me and made a way where I was like, well, I remember my friends were always like, Caitlyn, out of everyone on this campus, like, we're for sure, like, people are going to come back. They're like, but you, like, we honestly don't know if you'll be back.
Wow.
Because every semester I was always like, I don't know if this is.
Right.
And I kept, even telling God, like, if this is, if you don't want me here, give me one sign and I will go.
Right.
And He provided so much. And in
in
a way, like, that was so selfish of me to think like that. But like God was just super kind, and He provided, not just friends and beautiful friendships that I got from there, but He provided, financially, of just sending people my way who can help, pay and be there. And He provided at some of the hardest times. So like in the beginning of how I said I started college with my grandma, my grandpa, my pastor. Now they are all in heaven, and they didn't get to see me finish here physically.
Right.
And they were so excited for me to start.
Yeah.
And so like that was my first big, and like one of like my first milestone that they weren't at.
Right. And that was a year ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so like through that, like the Lord has just, I think of the verse that when He says to like follow me, like not, people say don't follow the followers, don't follow the church, but like it really comes down to like just follow Jesus. And like when my grandma, the woman who who just raised me and poured so much into me, when she passed, like I remember like I was in just so much grief, like I couldn't, like I didn't even want to come home because I didn't want that to be like a reality.
Wow, yeah.
But like my family needed me, and I remember telling God, I was like, it's gonna take you to get me through this one. Yeah. Like not.
I remember we're all praying for you.
Like
it
was really, really rough for me, and going home and trying to help my mom and all of that, and like even like leaving right away and like processing, in Chicago grief, and And then right after that was like my pastor, and then my grandpa, and like these people who I seen as like pillars in my life. Like when they have all passed, like I've seen the Lord replace it with nothing but himself. And
now, how do you see him show up like in grief? Grief stinks to walk through.
It does. It's really
hurts.
Yes.
It's really rough. How have you seen God help you, or has he even?
Yeah.
Grief?
So like,
by the way, if you're hungry, I
Wow.
actually might nibble on something. This is not here for decoration. This is if you want something.
Yeah, but I think like the way I've seen grief show up would be or not grief show up, God. Like grief does have trigger points. You know, there are. I heard someone say it's not very much a straight line, but there's always going to be ups and downs and waves, and it takes time. And then I first heard that, I was like, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to have to, you know. I mean, you know.
I don't want to hear it.
And it was funny because, like, well, it wasn't funny, but to me, it was like, I knew all the verses. I knew, like, I already knew, like, God's going to be, like, it's just the sayings. But, like, it was a time where, like, I actually had to believe it. Like, I genuinely had to, like, grab a hold of that with everything in me. I'm like, okay, God, like, you say this in your word, and I'm trusting you in your word that, like, you are going to be, you know, my peace. You are going to be my anchor, that you are closer than the brokenhearted. It was a time where, like, I didn't see God just, like, comfort me, like, give me peace in that way. Like, he did, like, he has. But he also, like, used his body. Like, people around me who love Jesus, who were, like...
community.
Who, like, when my grandma, like, first passed, like, there was friends at my school who, like, I told, and, like, I honestly was, like, really, like, a wreck. And they just came, like, they lived off campus. They came from the train, the L, and they came back to campus, and they brought me food. And they said, let's go sit in the plaza. Like, you need...
Other believers in Jesus who circled around you. Wow.
We just sat outside, and I ate, and I cried and cried and cried and cried. And they cried with me. And that was, like, one of the very first times, like, I experienced, like, just the beauty of, like, community. And although we weren't from the same background or race, like, their heart for the Lord and their heart for me was just so, like, evident that I was like, man, like, I want to do this for other people. You know, I want to be able to, even if I don't know the right words, to just, like, be there and to love and to support. And so God sent people my way who, like, really, like, just did life with me and wept with me and listened and, like, served. And, like, that was very eye-opening because, like, I never experienced that before. And it didn't, like, just stop there, but, like with them showing me that, like, I want to do it with others. And so, like, now, like, I mean, it has been a few years since, and I wouldn't say, like, it's been easier.
Right.
But I've seen God just keep me close. And really, that's all I want, is just to be close. Because, like, March, so in March, this past March, it's been another year since my grandpa has passed. And I just came back from an international missions trip to Mongolia in March. And so in April, this month, it kind of hit me of, like, man, like, because he was so excited that I was traveling and going, and he would love to hear, like, what I'm doing. And so it kind of hit me, like, this past month, like, you know, I wasn't able to call him, like, talk with him.
Right.
And so, like, even, like, that fresh, like, in a way, milestone or something new, because I've never been out of the country before, and it was my first time. Like, there's so much excitement, but it was kind of, like, hard to, like, not share it with, like, those who, like, knew.
Your special people.
Yeah. And so, like, during, like, this month, like, the Lord has given me peace and strength to continue to be in the role I'm playing right now of the work I do.
Yeah, you encourage people quite a bit. I want to ask you a question. Do you think, because you had that community come around you, but I'm thinking back to the freshman year, you were becoming bitter, and it took a choice of turning it around and asking people about them instead of saying poor me. You said the victim. Do you think you're well, I think there's a lot of things, but like, would you have even made it through college if you hadn't had that change in your thinking? But also, would you have had the kind of community you had if you hadn't kind of switched and turned, because you kind of had to say, okay, I'm going to try to focus on other people, even though they don't see me, they don't see my people, they don't know me, they don't seem to want to, not necessarily like we're not saying motive on that, but like they just don't know, it's off their radar. And but do you think things would have been how would that have played out if you had not made that switch in your thinking? And God kind of turning that switch, but we have to choose to turn that switch sometimes too. Like God can show us that, but
I think if I like did cave in and end up like I just see like floating, like just like whatever. I think I probably would have left. I probably would have finished. I probably would have settled for just bare minimum. And I mean, for me, like home is always there and it's always going to be open, but I know that's a big comfort zone.
Right.
And so I think like if I did like cave in, I would have just, I don't like if I would have left and probably just been like, whatever.
Right.
But because of the Lord and His grace and His strength in this, like really, like a lot of my story has been His strength that has got me through all the messes and to thriving. Like honestly,
you really have
because
driven.
Driven.
You have thrived.
She said you've thriven.
I don't think thriven's a word.
I like that word.
We're gonna make it a word here.
Yeah, but I really like it's only by Him and Him alone. Like honestly, like even from going out of the country and being able to share in a whole different culture about Jesus and a lot of so like when this past trip I went to Mongolia my first time, and a lot of time like I like just sat back and observed. And the people there had so many questions about Native Americans. Like they were just so fascinated. They wanted to know. They had like they knew like some knowledge of like from movies or so on. And so like we spent some time in a very like remote area, and I as I was there with like the team I went with, and they were asking us questions, and we all had different opportunities to share our story. And we did talk about the hurts and the pains and the history because they wanted to know the history. But in a way, it was pretty beautiful to see how God redeemed that because of Jesus. Right. Because within all of our lives, it was Jesus who was a difference maker. It was Jesus who helped healed our wounds that we don't like to talk about. It was Jesus who gave us purpose, and it's only by the cross. And for that, like that kind of opened like me up back to like the simplicity of like the gospel. Like we got to pray with people not in churches or all the things of like Christianity, the big movements, or not saying none that's bad, but we literally just went to different families and their small gears. They call them a gear, a house, and we just walked in and we got to communicate like.
Is that the round?
Yeah.
Like the Hogans, the Navajo people
so
have
like
too.
We got to like go and just have bread with them, literally bread or candy, milk tea, and just talk with them. We didn't have a schedule or a clock. It was just the conversation was going, you'll go, and then you carry on. And
when you say gospel, what did you share? What does that mean that you would talk about with them?
The gospel.
Yeah. What do you mean when you say that?
Yeah. Okay. So when
if someone's wondering, okay, this hope you're talking about, Caitlyn, and you like to share it with others, how can someone else have that kind of hope?
Yeah. So like if you look around wherever you're at, wherever you live, whoever's watching, you see that there's creation, and obviously there's a creator, there's God, and you can look around everywhere, and in the Bible it says you're created to have a relationship with God, to be in community with Him. But the thing is, we don't have it, and why we don't have that is because of a word called sin. And so kind of how you started in the beginning of this podcast, SIN, the middle letters I. So basically what you're telling God is, I want to live my own life. I want to do my own thing. I want to find my own solutions. I'm going to control, what I can. And, God, you created the mountains, you created trees, you created the tumbleweeds, the dirt, whatever. But when it comes to me, I got myself. And what sin does is that separates you from God. And when you're separated from God, you really, there's this void. It may be of emptiness, it may be of depression, it may, you don't have a purpose. You may question a lot, and it just seems like, why am I here on earth? But the thing is, because God loves us so much, He sent His Son down to die for us, and His name is Jesus. And what Jesus did was He took this death penalty we were supposed to pay, and He died for us. And Jesus wasn't a white person. He wasn't, this big stereotypical 6-foot, blonde hair, blue eyes, had it all together, the finest clothing. Even maybe he didn't even have the finest shoes. He didn't have Jordans or none of that. Jesus, Jesus really was a man, a brown skin.
Is that in the Bible
man.
First? Jesus didn't have Jordans.
The Gen Z translation. I'm just kidding.
Right.
But Jesus, He was a man who came from a place where they said nothing good would come from there. Yeah. He was a tribal man. He
sadly, some people say that about our reservations.
Yeah.
And it's so not true. But yeah.
Yep. And
keep going. I love this.
He didn't he didn't speak English. He spoke in his tribal dialect. He really, if you think of a reservation, he probably would blend right in. You probably would even tell he's a Mediterranean Jew, and his real name wasn't Jesus. His name was Yeshua, and he was fully man and fully God, and he paid this debt that we were supposed to pay, and the one motive he had was love. And what that did was, as he paid the debt of sin for us to have this relationship, he didn't only stay dead, but he rose again. And you can look in any religion, you can look in any story, you can look in any tomb, any grave, there will be still a sign and a trace of a person there.
Right.
Of whatever, Buddha, whoever. But if you look in the tomb of Jesus, it's empty. And Jesus,
he is not here.
Yeah, and He has been the only man to ever conquer death, and because of that, we can have this relationship with God, and it is a choice. So if you look at how you grabbed a cookie earlier from here, I didn't force you to eat it. I didn't say, here, take this. You grabbed it because you wanted it. Because you were hungry, or you wanted to. Because you made that growling. First move. Yeah.
Right.
So a relationship with Jesus is something that you must grab if you want it, and it's not going to be forced upon you. And I think that's where a lot of the history of Native people has happened, is because the gospel sadly was forced in different ways through residential schools, when it is a gift. It's the gift of life, and it's something that you get to choose, and you can choose. And really, it's just because God just wants to be with you, and not to have you do life alone or face these messes alone. But the only way you can thrive is if you got Jesus by your side.
Okay, that's probably one of the biggest mic drops right there.
The
only way you can Just drop the mic, but I don't think they'd appreciate that with the sound quality. But anyway, that's so well said, though, of doing the messes of life and to be able to thrive, having that hope, the hope that Jesus gives. And friend, I just have to say, if there's any way you want this hope that Caitlyn's talked about today, and that she's walked through so much mess, and the mess can hurt, the mess leaves wounds, but I love how you don't lightly say that God has done this. It's because you've lived it, because you've walked through it, because you've made some intentional choices to heal and the unforgiveness and really look to God every step of the way. And if you'd like that hope, the Bible literally says, believe on the name of Jesus Christ and you will be saved. You can call out to him and just talk with him and choose to begin that relationship and just ask to get, clean your heart from the past junk and the crud, and turn from living my way to saying, God, I choose your way, and having that relationship with him. And I'm so thankful for you sharing and just all of this. And are there any other messes in life you'd like to share? I feel like this has been just an amazing conversation. I've been like down the edge of my seat. Just listen, because again, I've known some of your story, but this has just been really powerful to hear of, the mess, and the mess doesn't have to win. Yeah. And I love just seeing the hope throughout your story and the choices and what God's done with that. And one other thing that I thought of while you were talking a couple different times was the, even with your dad, when he released you for school and just how he saw God was directing you that way and leaving the care of your father. And the Bible talks about when we choose a relationship with God, he's our heavenly Father, our heavenly daddy, and he's been that for you and in some hard times. And I love hearing about that. So any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, back to my grandpa.
Yeah.
When he did pass, I went home and spent some time with him before. And I've had the privilege and honor of being a part of a ministry on Eagles Wings that goes to different, all over throughout Native America, and we share the gospel on basketball courts. So I got to, just share the gospel with other young Native people. And the one person I was most intimidated by to ever share the gospel with was my grandpa. I don't know why. I think because,
I was going to ask why.
I think because I knew I was so intimidated. I was thinking I can go to the most random reservation and talk to a young person about Jesus, but when I go home and talk to my grandpa, I would freeze. I'd be like, I don't know. And
this is the grandpa who asked you to pray for him and things too from your journey.
Yeah. And so it was in February, I think, maybe 2 years now, maybe 3, I don't remember, but he, I think it was 2 years. He was in his room, and I remember I was like, I need to ask him about Jesus, and I was like, okay, Lord, and it, things are going south pretty fast, and so I went and asked him, hey, do you want to accept Jesus of the Bible? And it was the longest minute of my life. It felt like it was quiet. Wow. It was silent. My sister was in that room with me, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh," which is yes. And so I got to pray with him. Again, it wasn't in a church. It wasn't through a pastor. It was just his granddaughter and him, and I got to pray with him and sing him "Jesus Loves Me" in Navajo. And the peace of God fell in that room and on his body. And I've never seen nothing like that. Wow. Where you can physically see someone in so much distress to where you could just see that he was like, okay. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but
that's like what the Bible says, the peace that goes beyond our understanding, right?
Yeah, and it literally,
that's what you're describing at
physically,
that moment.
Happened.
Wow.
And then shortly after that, like, things went south, and then, like, he ended up passing, and we did his service in a church, and just getting to share, the gospel and that. And with all the big messes in my life, some of them that I was like, what is happening? God, where are you? Why am I here? All the questions, like, really, like, the only way to thrive was because of Jesus, and is because of Jesus. And I guess some of my final thoughts to whoever's watching is to remember, like, you are created for a purpose, and you are created to do more, and you matter. And just know that the God who has made the heavens and the earth is a God who literally longs to be with you and to do life with you. And life isn't worth doing alone, but the way you can thrive is when you do it with him. And so, I mean, with especially like the Native background, Native Americans, there is a lot of hurt. And I will never say like there isn't, because there is. But it is beautiful when you see the Lord just use his gospel to reach, the people, and
the good news.
And the good news that never ends, really. And like, it's been amazing to see how God continuously raises up people, and who want to work on reservations or even throughout the world. Because like, I've heard the saying, like, Native Americans for so long is a mission field. We get VBSs, we get missionaries, which is not bad, which God does use. But there is a time, and I honestly believe the time is now, that Natives are becoming that mission force.
Wow.
And what a beautiful
mission
time.
Field mission force. Well, sharing the hope that you have found. That's the beautiful thing about it, that you're sharing, and I love that. Wow. So, and how amazing about your grandpa too.
Yes, praise God about him. But I mean, thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this.
Thank you. I wish I had some better coffee for you.
I did not touch it. I'll drink it now.
But I so just appreciate you sharing so much hope here in the middle of mess. And I really hope you've been encouraged today. I pray that some of Caitlyn's story will be encouraging to you, no matter what mess, what strand of her story might have touched your life today. And I hope you'll be here next time to join us on Thrive in the Mess.